So this energy, we can call it Kundalini energy.
Yes, it is often called that.
So the energy is based in the pelvic region and sexual. What happens if the sexual activity is minimized in someone's life when they're doing this practice and they have a buildup of energy? What should they do with that energy?
Well, you mean if the energy is moving and it's too much?
Well, because it is sexual energy and you're building this energy up with the practice that you're talking about, is there anything they should look out for as far as building up too much energy if they don't have a sexual outlet for it?
Well, yes, and it's related to a person's sexual lifestyle, if there is one. It's also related to a person's lifestyle in terms of what their activity is in the world. Is the energy being utilized for something that's fulfilling in the world? And it also has to do with pacing of practices because, we talked about Tantra last time and the preservation and cultivation of sexual energy, and this really ties in with that. But for those who are not sexually active and who may be celibate, for example, then it's important to be engaged in a lifestyle where that energy can be applied in a fulfilling, holistic way. And it's also important to be pacing practices in a way to where the energy does not overflow out or overload coming up through the nervous system. And there's a lot of people out there these days who are having Kundalini overloads and difficulties, not only because of maybe practices not being ideally managed, but also because there's a lot more energy in the air these days, and people are much more prone to have spiritual awakenings. And it's good to be aware of that. So you want to be very balanced and paced in your practices. You want to be balanced and paced in your life. And you also want to be balanced and paced in your sex life. I mean, let's face it, if sexual energy is just mounting up and it's too much, it has to be vented off somewhere.
So I guess exercise would be good as well.
Exercise, we call it grounding in the AYP approach, where anything that gets you out and active, doing something grounding, whether it's digging in the garden or exercising, being engaged in service, helping other people.
Yes.
It's very grounding, which is what I was talking about when I was talking about fulfilling lifestyle.
Yes.
If your energy is being put to good use, it essentially keeps you grounded. So we discuss that quite a lot in the lessons of AYP.
It'd be impossible to say how long it would take for someone to actually reach this point, but how will they know when they're using all of these techniques that they're actually moving forward? There'll be signs along the way that we've spoken about, but is there anything else that we should look at?
Well, the real measure of any spiritual practice isn't what happens during the practice. It's what happens during your daily life when you're between your practices.
Yes.
And so what you will notice if you're doing asanas, and I'm sure anybody that does asanas on a regular basis knows this, is that you tend to be more centered and more peaceful. That's really what people get out of it. It may be just called relaxation, but it really is something much more profound than that. So in our daily life, it's more peace, it's more creativity, it's actually more energy, the natural ability not to be overwhelmed by events so much, not be stressed, able to act appropriately in the appropriate situations, even when it's an emergency. So you just become more centered.
Equanimity.
And asanas are good for that, and all of yoga together in a balanced routine is extremely good for that, and it even reaches far beyond that in terms of getting into the spiritual evolution and higher states of consciousness.
Yes. I saw a little video about meditation and what it does to the brain while you're meditating, how it balances the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. What does this practice do to the brain?
The asanas or meditation?
All of it, the whole practice, all of the techniques, the 8 limbs together. Imagine.
Well, it makes the brain more silent, if I can use that word. I mean, these things can be measured and have been measured in the past, and I guess research is increasing on the neurophysiology of these higher states of consciousness. So, but basically, it brings the biochemistry of the brain in balance, and it increases the production of the chemical and hormonal components that correspond with this peace and creativity and inner silence. I'm not a brain scientist, so I can't really tell you all about the research.
I think there's so much research going on now that this is something that would be really worthwhile looking into.
I hope so. I really hope so, and I'm very strongly in favor of scientific research on human beings that are going through this evolution, because it's really where we're going. We're out there in outer space, and that's a good thing, but we're also now beginning to go into inner space, and I think science needs to take note, and I think the more verification we can find coming for these states of consciousness and the improvement of the quality of human life, basically.
Yes.
The more we can put that in terms of science, the more convincing it will be. Not that people who are having these experiences need convincing, but maybe everybody else could use a little convincing.
Absolutely. I think it really helps when you hear these wonderful things about meditating in areas, thousands of people meditating together on peace, and then the actual crime level dropping after, during that period of time when this practice is going on. It's really quite incredible.
It is, and in fact, I can give you some first-hand information along with our website, which is aypsite.org. We have a forum community which is growing fairly large. There's several thousand people that are involved there now. And something that we introduced a few years ago was what we call the global group meditation, which it started out just to be on Saturday mornings with a coordinated time. Saturday morning here in the USA, but then different times everywhere around the globe. And we've coordinated where people meditate together wherever they happen to be at the same time around the world once a week. And we also added a healing component to that with the technique of samyama, which we may be talking about next time. But in any case, it's been so noticeable for people around the world when these group meditations are going on. Even if you're sitting by yourself in your room, you notice the difference in your meditation. And it's got to be so popular, we now do it on 2 days. We do it on Saturday and Sunday. And anybody that's interested in exploring that can find a link on the aypsite.org website on how to get involved. It is very powerful, and some of the people that write back into the forum after these sessions and say, "Oh man, this is incredible really? What's happened in my meditation while I was doing it with everybody else."
That's amazing. So what time do you do this, and what part of the world?
Well, Eastern Time, USA, it's 11:15 in the morning on Saturday and Sunday. And then the samyama comes after that. And most of your listeners won't know what samyama is because we haven't talked about it yet. But it's an additional technique that's a follow-on for meditation that enables you to move stillness. And hopefully we can talk about that in the next interview. It's also used in the global group meditations where we actually focus the silence on particular individuals who are in need. And people can sign up for that as well.